So this is Introduction to Scripting in Reaper. And just a few words about me. My name is Tadej. It's not Tadej, it's Tadej. I'm a sound designer, developer, and educator based in Vienna in Austria. And yeah, I think I started scripting or coding hacking in GameMaker 2 about 20 years ago, and programming was always like a steady companion in my life. This course is geared towards beginners, like absolute beginners, people who never wrote any line of code in Lua or ReaScript. And that's it. If you have like any questions in between, please make sure to put them in the chat. I'll leave the chat on my second screen, so hopefully I will see the questions. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's start. So I will share my screen real quick. Can you see the almighty Reaper? Okay, so Reaper is visible, right? Good. So let's start. So what is exactly ReaScript? You all probably know about the action list, this wonderful piece of whatever. And what the action list is basically all the small modules of actions Reaper can do. So you all might know the split command or the zoom command or whatever. So each action in Reaper is, you can find here and assign shortcuts to it and run it, etc. So the thing is, if you want to be like a bit more complex with your actions, you could create custom actions. Some of you might know these already. So with these custom actions, you can select actions from the action list and execute them in a sequential order. So you can say select all tracks, apply a random color, whatever. Hey, Knell sounds, that's a good idea. Thanks. So these are custom actions. So I could say, I'll call it TS apply random color. So I could say maybe select all tracks. If there's anything like that. I'm just making things up right now. Ah, yeah, select all tracks. And then the next action should be random color track set to random colors. So that way I could create a lot of tracks and run this action and say, okay, select all tracks and just apply a random color. Okay, so that was like the stage 2. And the stage 3 is ReaScript. So what if you want to add much more complex behavior like conditional statements? What if you want to make a GUI for your scripts? What if you want to automate like even further with item lengths, etc.? So that's where ReaScript shines. And to create a script, you just go here to new action and say new ReaScript. And I'll just put them on my desktop and call them Air Wiggles Basics. And by the way, I'll put all the scripts in a zip folder or something for you to like check out later. Hello, Katarina. Just a word of warning. I can't go too much into depth with coding, but I do want to cover the fundamentals. and we'll just cover some concepts on the go. So the first thing you'll notice is this maybe intimidating screen, but you'll get used to it, where I can type code, and here I can run the script I've written. Now there is nothing written in the editor, so nothing will be executed. And there are some more variables here which we will use later. So like a classic example or classic base exercise in programming would be to do an output. So we will output text in the console, and like the programming classic is hello world. So in ReaScript, it looks like this: repo.show console message hello world. Now I get this console output where it says hello world. I'll execute it again. It's hidden somewhere. Yeah, it's here. So that's a basic output. This is really useful for debugging if you like want to check out values when you execute your code, etc. So there's also something we'll need, which is called variables. So variables are basically data containers where you can store values. So I could declare a variable named name and assign a value named like Tadej is the value. And with show console message, I could also output this name. And what's also useful in the IDE here is you can see the variable value here, the name and the value. So if I write Louis, it will be Louis. Yeah. Okay, I think that's pretty basic for now. What you can also do is to get an input from a user. Honestly, I never used this function. I just prepared it for the workshop, and it's get user inputs. You know, there is a title for the pop-up. It's called input. I want one input name, and generally now okay, there's an error, mistake. Now I will get this dialog, and I can put in something today, or let's do Greg because he's sick. Okay, and nothing happened. So usually when you use functions like these, or like show console message and a lot of other functions we will use today, they will provide something called a return value. And we will look into the API help later, which shows all the commands and return values for ReaScript. But now I just know, okay, this function returns 2 values. This is something which is really weird when you get into Lua scripting. It's a function can have 2 return values or multiple return values. As in C#, you can only have one. So I know this one is like returning RV. That's just like it says true or false. Is it a valid input or not? And the value variable stores the actual input. So I could go here and say show console message value. I will execute it again. Now it's Greg. And I get Greg here again. So that's for the basics. So the next one, the next thing I want to look into is conditional statements. Let's maybe make a new script. Air wiggles conditional statements. Best variable, Greg, yeah. It's a constant. It's a programmer joke. Greg is a constant. So what are conditional statements? Usually at some point in your code, you'd like to make decisions. So you want to say, okay, if I have 10 tracks selected, I want to close Reaper. No, I want to, I don't know, paint them red. So let's look at a simple example. I'll make a new variable and call it track count and assign a value of 1. By the way, I forgot, variables can have different data types. So this one is an integer, it's a whole number, and then you can have strings. These are texts like red, best. And you can also see that the track count value changes here. Or it could also be a float, that's a decimal, 1.5. I'm always accidentally copying it. And if I assign a new value, of course, the new value will be assigned here. So the code is always executed sequentially. So let's do a track count, 1. Now I can say, if my track count variable, the value of my track count variable is greater than 5, then I will output a new console message and say, what a huge project. And otherwise, like if it's less or equal 5, it will output your project could have some more tracks. By the way, I'm having a cheat sheet here, so I prepared everything for you. Just typing. Okay, I executed the code, and my value is 1, and of course it checks if your value is greater than 5. Is it greater than 5? No, it's 1. So execute this. If I change this and to 10, it will output what a huge project. Yeah, Scott, you're right. I hope it's not annoying. I can show it to you later. Okay, cool. Are there any questions now, or is it? Am I good to go? Because I will go into loops real quick, and then we will start with Reaper specific stuff. Okay, let's do another script. Loops. Do a loopy loop. So there are very often there are scenarios where you want to execute a code more often. So for example, I want to show console message 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Katerina has a question. Do I have to declare the type, integer, float, etc.? It will be declared automatically. So in Lua, it's a dynamically typed language. I think you could even do a equals ABC and a equals 1. It should work just fine. So you don't need static typing as in C#, for example. Yeah, a is 1. It just gets overwritten. This seems handy, but it can also be very tricky to debug. So you could have some issues with that. Yeah, Leon, I know. In my heart, I like to declare variables statically, but I can't. There's also something called nil, which I don't know what it means, but it's basically like null in C#. It says, okay, this variable has no value assigned, no number, no string, and it also disappears from the watch list. Yeah, Greg, that's really, really useful, especially if you're writing bigger scripts. So where was I? Yeah. there is this scenario where you want to maybe execute that code more often. I want 2, 3, 4, 5. But what if I want this code to be more scalable? Like for example, okay, I want to output 1 to 10 or 1 to 20. And if I want to do this each time, I need to change the code. Pablo, are you more comfortable using Reaper built-in IDE that rather than other one? Yes, I really like Visual Studio Code, but I haven't tried. Apparently, there's an integration for Visual Studio Code and Reaper, but I haven't tried it yet. Usually, I do all the scripting here because it's just integrated in Reaper, and I got used to the shortcuts and looks. Thanks, Leon. Null, I mean, null, technically, it says there is no reference to a slot in the memory. So it might exist in memory, but there is nothing references it, and nil might be something similar. So loops, yeah, there are maybe occasions where I want to execute code more often, and for that there are loops, and I think the one you will use the most is the for loop, which looks like this. Thanks, Patrick. Nil is a value, not a Lua Pro. So this one just says, okay, I start iterating a variable I from 1 and it goes to 10. And here I just say, okay, please output the value of the variable during the current loop run and do a line break. It will execute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I would say, okay, start from 5 to 10, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, let's do 1 to 100. I think you get the point. So I saved a lot of lines of code. Okay, I think we're good to go and see the Reaper specific stuff. So where to start? There are some resources for ReaScript. I think the best resource is actually the forum, and there is also a great Discord server. But another great resource is also the API help, which is here. This will open this huge list, as you can see, of functions which are like available in the ReaScript API. And there's a lot of functions here. And if you have SVS extension installed and other like tools, there might be even more functions here. So these one are the basic. This one is the basic stuff, and down there's even more, depending on if you have like more or different extensions installed or not. Okay, so what you could do is say, okay, let's think about a script we want to write. And I came up with an idea. I'd like to write a script where I can set the automation mode from the selected track or the currently selected track from trim to read. Yeah, Greg, it's a lot. So let's start with a new script. Oh no, there we go. No, false. True. Wiggles. Let's call it toggle read trim. Okay. So what I would like suggest everyone to do is just to think through the steps logically which you would need to do to accomplish this functionality. So what I want to do is I want to select this track and change the automation mode based on the selected track with a script. So logically, what I'd need to do via script is get currently selected track. Here is a comment. So if you put 2 dashes here, you can write comments in your code which won't be treated as actual Lua code. And the second thing I'll do is set the automation mode. And now, wild thing to do is you could say, okay, just selected track, and now you Reaper's what is it called? IntelliSense? No, autocompletion is already suggesting some functions. And there is get selected track, which says get selected track from a project. So that's one way to find a function. Another way would be to go here and say selected track and hope to find it. And here, if you click it, it will jump to the description. Oh no, it was a full one. Get selected track. Get a selected track from a project 0 for the active project, by selected track count 0 based. This function ignores the master track. So what does this mean? We will get the index of the selected track from 0. So this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And let's see what happens. So I'll need 2 parameters for this function. The first one is the current project, which is 0. And the second parameter is the selected track index. So if I type 0, it will return a media track. And I will assign a track variable to this. And let's execute it. By the way, if you save a script, it will be executed automatically. Now I can see that there is track, which has a value of Reaper object 0x whatever, which is, I suppose, address in the memory. So we actually don't know what this is, but we know, okay, the 0 index is the first track. If I change this to 1, we can see that the value here will change as well. Or not. No. Okay. I need to select more of them. So now we can iterate. So, and the second thing I need to do, I want to set the automation mode. There is a function called set track automation mode. I already prepared it, so we don't need to find it, but you could also use like this technique where you say track or like automation mode. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And this function takes the track reference, which is this one, and the integer, which is the mode. So it wants the automation mode in form of an integer. So 0 is trim, 1 is read, etc. And often, I think in this case, it's documented. Yeah. Set track automation mode. There is no documentation, so you actually don't know which integer to use. So often it's trial and error to find out if that is like correct. So if I execute this, and change this to 1, I can see that my read mode like my automation mode is set to read. And if I change it to 0, it's set back to trim. When it's 2, it's latch, etc. So that way you could test out things. Okay, let's improve the script. I already did an improvement. So what would be nice is to toggle the automation mode for all selected tracks. So let's think about how we can improve the script. So get all selected tracks. Then for each selected track, check the automation mode. We want to find out is it read or is it trim, and we want to toggle these two. So if it's trim, it should be set to read, and vice versa. And the third step we need to do is automation mode, change the automation mode accordingly. Okay, I think this makes sense. So in Reaper, how you would do that is there is a function called, let's delete this, count selected tracks. With 0, that means it's a current project. And this one returns the number of selected tracks in the project. And let's save it in the variable count. And now I have 1 track selected and count is 1. If I select 4, it's set to 4. It's pretty cool. Now, the big question is, how do I get each selected track and change the automation mode accordingly? Therefore, we need loops, which we already learned a few minutes ago. So usually you would do something like for I equals 0, because the track index is 0 based, as we already found out before. So it doesn't start from 1, it starts from 0. And it goes to count minus 1, because count is 4, but we want to check 0, 1, 2, 3. So we need to say count minus 1. I hope that's clear now. If not, please, you know. So what we need to do is, again, we need to get the current track, like the first track when I is 0. Get selected track 0, that means the current project. And then for the selected track index, we can say I. So it gets the reference for track 0, track 1, track 2, and track 3. And then what we can do is, now we have the track, now we need to check the automation mode. And to do that, we can get the automation mode, get track automation mode, and save track automation mode to a variable. So mode is 0. And please mind, this value here is like the last iteration of the loop. So it will get overwritten each time when the code finishes. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is we need to check what the mode is. If the mode is 0, if it's trim, then set track automation mode to 1. Else, if it's not 0, set it back to 0. Okay. So let's test this. Save and run it each time. It toggles between read and trim. And let's maybe test it this way. Let's select all and toggle. So this should toggle an operation. That's the first script for today, and there is also a second one which I prepared. Do you have any questions about this? Cool. Cool. Okay, then maybe let's start the second script. For the second script, I thought we'd work with media items. I'll create 3 new tracks. And let's make a script where you can set the length of each selected item to the first item length. So basically, what we want to do is first create a script, set item length to first item length, like that. And what I want to do is I want to write a script which takes the length of this item and trims every item to this. Could be handy for some of you. Yeah, let's start. So how do I go about this? Again, I get all selected items. Then I check the length of the first item. And for all other items, I set the length to the first item length. Yeah, Katarina, I know it's something you need to get used to, unfortunately, but I think it's pretty cool to code in Lua. And sometimes I don't miss the brackets at all, but sometimes I do. They're beautiful. So that's it. First, we want to get or count all the selected items. I'll make a new variable item count and say count selected items. Yes, Greg. Honestly, it's something I don't do too much, but when I do it, my code gets better. Well, at least it isn't Java. No comment. There are only comments here. Haha. So I'll execute the script, and my item count is 3. If I select only 2, it's 2, etc. If I don't select anything, it's 0. Cool. So we know that we already selected 3 tracks, and now I will work on the rest. So I can check if my item count is greater than 1, then I will execute my code. Otherwise, if it's only 1 item selected, there is no need to do any operation. So it would just pass this if statement and call it a day. Now what I need to do is, logically, I need to get the first selected item, and you can do that with get selected media item 0, because it's always the 0 indexed item. And let's check this real quick. So item is again a repo object which stores the reference to this item, to the first item. And now I want to find out the item length. And this is something where I struggled in the beginning, so that's why I took it in the workshop, so you have somewhere to start. Adrian, I don't know, Adrien, maybe. They're both they're both like using indents. I think they're similar. I'm not a Python. I haven't written much Python code, but I mean my opinion is any language works, and there are semantical differences. But if you know one language well, you can learn others easily. There are some quirks in Lua, but we get used to everything. Ah, very good. I got it with the pronunciation. So where was I? Yeah, about the item length. So how do you get the item length? You could start with item length, and it says set media item length, but there is no get media item length. Why is there no get media item length? Then you go to the API and say get media item length. And again, there is no get media item length. And then you go to the repo forums and Google and blah, blah, blah. So that's why I took it into the example. There is a function called get media item info value. And this is where it really gets weird, I think, the API. There is this function get media item value. And what it does, it takes an item and a parameter name, which are listed here. And you can say, okay, I want the length of the item. I need to take this parameter as an argument for the function. If I want to have the log state, I need to take this one, etc. So there isn't always a function for one specific purpose, but there's often one function for multiple purposes, especially when it comes to info about media items or tracks. So I'll do that. I'll get the item length, get media item info value for my first item, and the parameter is d length, and d stands for double, a very precise decimal number. Now I can see I get item length of 1, which is 1 second here, and the item count is 2. Excuse me. This number, you will always get seconds. So if I increase this, it might be a bit, yeah. And now what I need to do is for all the other items, that means items from index 0 to index n, like that's selected, we set the length of the item to this value we already saved from this item. So let's do that. So we have for I equals 1 item, whoops. So I will skip item 0 because we already checked that, and set the length for each other items to the first item length. So let's get the current item in the loop and just say set media item length for this item, and the length should be item length. That's the saved length from the first item, and refresh UI true, why not? I will select this one, execute the code, and voila, we have all three with the same length. Oops. So this should, I haven't tested this, but this should also work. Yeah. Could be useful maybe, but I'm sure there is already a script like this. It's just an example. That's it for the example scripts. And there is one thing I want to share with you, namely, you don't need to reinvent the wheel when you're scripting. What I want to say is there is this action list. And what's quite handy is, for example, if I want to select all tracks, in my script, I don't need to write a function for that. I could also use an existing action. So each action has a command ID. So I will just copy the selected action command ID. And here in the end, say main on command, paste the command ID, and flag is always 0. What it does is it just looks up the ID for this action and executes it. So we should see this shortening and also all tracks selected. Yeah, looks good. And convention for this is, if you do this, it's most likely that you will see people also putting the selected action as a comment here besides, so you know what is happening. So this is really, really, really useful, and I encourage you to do it. So yeah, that's basically it for the tutorial and for the introduction. And what we could do is, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. We could also look into some of my scripts, to the code, if there's anything you want to know. Knelt sounds, do you mean add-ons for GUIs? Do you mean like writing GUI in ReaScript or another editor? Cedric, yeah, of course. I'll just look what we have here. I can't take a deep script, but let's see. Maybe this one is nice. Split item under cursor and trim shorter side. So it's like this behavior where you always trim the shorter side of the trim. Oh, Serge, I'll come back to you. So that's quite a short script. You can find it on Repack in my repository. So what it does, it just says main on command, split item under mouse cursor, select left, ignore grouping. So it just executes this command, split item under mouse cursor and select the left. And then I get the left item. Sorry, I'm reading the question. I see there are tooltips popping up in the console. Are there any console add-ons say that can interpret lines of code into human readable? I don't know if there's anything for this IDE, honestly, because I'm just using the vanilla one. But it's a great question. Maybe something we can look up. I'll just have a quick look at the next question. Maybe it's related to this one. General about repo are irrational time signatures. 60 supported. I write music in Dorico, which has support. Yeah, let's check it. Looks good. Also it should also work fine in the, everything is convoluted with my scripting windows. Yeah, should work. I never tried it, but maybe, yeah. Nice. Maybe we should write songs in 16.3. So let's get back to the script. I'll finish this one real quick. So I get the left item of the split, because when I split, I know the only selected item is the left. There is no other item selected. So I can just safely say, okay, take 0. That means like the 0 index selected item. And then if left item, that means if this has a value, if there is something in there, please execute this code. Then I get the length of the left item and save it into left length. We already learned this one. Then I get the track for the selected item. So with this function, I know what my item is, and with this one, I can get the corresponding track. And there I select the adjacent item and store it, get the other length of the adjacent item. I know there might be a better way to do it. It was one of my first scripts. Baby Teddy working on his first script. And then I just compare these two lengths. And if it's smaller than the right segment, delete the left segment, otherwise delete the right segment. Update the range just says, okay, refresh the arrange window, and this one unselects all items. As I said, they're on GitHub. You can easily check them out if you have like any questions or thoughts. Or maybe this one, align item position to first selected item. So this one just is this. And even if you have snap offset, it should align it to this. Yeah, it should align it to the snap offset. So this one, we already seen this one, just count all items. If the item count is bigger than 1, because it doesn't make any sense if we just select one item, then sorry, I thought I had the previous script open. Brain freeze. I will get the align position. That means the position of the first item, and add the snap offset to this align position. So it just says, okay, whatever this is, 0 plus the snap offset, and that's my reference position. And then I reiterate the remaining items, again from 1 to n, or the count, and get the snap offset from each item. And then I set the position to my align position minus the snap offset. That means I can here easily add some snap offsets. The script should, maybe not. Yeah, it aligns all the snap offsets here. I hope that was useful as an example. And maybe another script. Yeah, let's do this one. I think I posted this one already on AirWiggles. Yes, Andrea, it is. And really fast. So what this script does is it iterates all selected tracks and turns everything red, just a joke, and creates razor areas on the boundaries of these tracks. So this is super useful if we want to render your areas for your library. So I could go here, the render window, and say, take the razor edit areas, and it creates 3 files with the corresponding length per track. So if you want to make sausage files or anything like that, that's a quick script for that. So nothing new. We already cooked with this water. I'll just take a sip because I said water. I'll count all the selected tracks. And then I get the selected tracks. I get the item count per track. So in that case, it would be, 1, 2, and 2. Then I get the first item and the last item with 0 and item count -1, because I know the item count per track. And then I can just say, okay, the start position for my region render area is the position of the first item, and the last position is the position of the last item plus its length. So it's here. And then there is a special way to set razor edits. Namely, you need to provide this kind of string with the time in seconds where you want to set the areas. And I'm using this string.format. It's just a way to format a string based on provided values. And then I set the razor edits with this value. So if I select this one, this one, it will look like that. Here. And that one here. Is it possible to use something like this in radio production if ads should have a specific length? Maybe you could, yeah. You could analyze the length of a track and maybe write a script which turns everything which is like too long red. Like each item turns red if it's like longer than, I don't know, 15 seconds. Maybe something like that. So is there anything else you want to see, or should we maybe go into some more questions? Stretch. Would you kindly share some links to the materials you mentioned earlier that you find useful? Yes. I thought about doing a quick PDF with the scripts and put it in a zip. So I will just link it to this event maybe as a comment. Or as you said on YouTube, would be nice. PS, Brave and keep us. Yeah, keep us. It's the best. I usually use Firefox, but the AirWiggles stream only worked on keep us. I did see someone posting in the questions like a few days ago if we will do anything GUI related. We can't, but maybe we can make another workshop at some point. It was a good question, a bit making GUI. Nowadays, there is a really good framework named RIA in GUI. This one. And usually what I do is, I don't know, at least I had a stream issue. It always kicked me out of the stream. Usually what I do is to kick off my script. I just copy this one right here and create a new script. Playground 3, because there's already 1 and 2. Copy this, and I already have a GUI application in Reaper. You need to have some dependencies via repack installed for this to work, but it's pretty cool, I think. You need to get like a bit into it, but it's fine, yeah. Just a shameless self ad. I've been working with someone from Soundly on a UCS toolkit where you can rename and name tracks, items, regions, markers, and even files in the Media Explorer with UCS. So you could like search for dragon, creature dragon, fix name, big boy dragon, me, Ola, because Isabella. And now I could rename these three tracks. And this tool is written with the re-in GUI. So it's really flexible. You can do a lot of things and it just works. You can even do things like docking, additional windows. Oh, it's a support window. And yeah, all the things you know from GUIs. Thanks, Michael. You already know it. Yeah, I think that's it for today. I do have some more time for questions if you want. So I need to be very punctual. No. Stop sharing. Hello. Is there anything else you want to know? Another tip how to start. Yes, and just like start with some basic script ideas, analyze other scripts, read in the forums, ask in the forums. I know this is really cheap advice, but just do it. Just start anywhere and write a simple script, which maybe like we did toggles automation mode. Thanks, Michael. You can liebe Grüße zurück. Thanks a lot, Tadej. What do you think is the missing script tool in Reaper? Oh, there are a lot of things missing, but luckily you can script and the community is doing a lot of great things. What I do think Reaper is missing, like natively, is a good modulation system, because you can only modulate one parameter, but you can't like have global modulators where you can, connect things to where you can connect modulators to parameters like in Bitwig or Ableton. This one is really missing, I think, and it would be the top one thing on my Reaper wish list, actually. Greg, it's good for you to see the general workflow and it's not scary, it seems. Oh no, it's not at all. You can't destroy anything. Just words of warning, because we're talking about destruction. You might also have seen JSFX, or like these JS scripts. Oh, sorry, I didn't share my screen. Just a second. Toggle screen share. Okay, there are actually two ways of scripting in Reaper. The first one is ReaScript, which we learned today. It's about automating Reaper workflow. And the second one is JSFX. Most of you might know these JSFX, which have this prefix JS. And what that is, it's a live coding environment in Reaper where you can do DSP, like really real-time digital signal processing in Reaper with a lot of mathematics and fun stuff. So you can build your own audio effects. when you're doing this one, I would suggest to turn down the master bus and the volume unless you're 100% sure you won't get any weird noise or this ear-distracting noise. So if you see JSFX, it's not the same as ReaScript. It's something completely different. So if there are not any more questions, I think let's call it a day. So thank you for being here. It was really, really fun. And it's my first time doing it like this. And yeah, thank you. Really cool. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.